and lifts and hop back over. I would encourage you to do the XL so you can all cram in a car and make friends.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Smart. Don't be paying $10 just for
I
yourself.
literally made a connection with a stranger in the
Yes.
lift on the way. And we did was
That's
go
what
around
you
the
do.
block.
That's how you network, right? And I have sat in the trunk of 2 lifts this week. So, the XLs. That's how we do.
That's how we do.
Yes. Yes, purposeful, of course. Of course. So I have 9 authors that are really good friends, which makes my life so much more amazing as a publisher to really create deep connections with my authors. And we have so many that we can't even fit them all in one shot. So my hope is to do like 4 and then get the other 4 up here. So before I get going though, I want Robin Dillard to come up to the front of the room for a minute. Yeah. So for those who are not part of the conference, Robin Dillard is amazing, and with BEQ magazine, which they're floating about. And she's one of the big reasons we are having a lot of beautiful audio and visual situations happening tonight. She's a great video production in addition to a million other things. So I just want you to say a couple words.
The first words I have to say is that I love Jen T. Green.
Yeah!
And I'm going to tell you, in this very young body here, it's like wisdom of the 80s. And when someone told me that she was under 40, because we had her in our 40 LGBT leaders under 40, I was like, no one that smart and accomplished can be under 40. She was. I'm sorry I'm outing you by age. One thing I want to tell you is that I'm working here with a local team. It's called the Zoo Studios out of St. Pete's, and they are phenomenal, okay? These people are on the money, and if you need services, they have it all. And it's got zebra stripes on the Jeeps and everything, and they go with the theme, and they have a full service studio, and I love them all. They're my new friends, and so whenever I come to town and I need to do some work, I'm actually gonna call on them again, and you should too. Thank you for the opportunity, and if there's anybody in here who wants to be in a magazine so I can tell you a story, please talk to me. Okay, Robin, you're first.
Yes, lots of hands. You're very welcome. Right. So we're talking about the business of becoming an author. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that if you're sitting in this room and you're thinking, does my story need to be told? Robin?
I forgot to thank Melissa.
Oh.
Can we thank Melissa?
Yes, we can thank Melissa. Part of the BEQ team, who did a beautiful write-up on myself and PYP and so many of our authors, which is in the magazine floating around. So thank you, Melissa. It's fine. So yes, so we're talking about the business of being an author, because there's a business component to being an author. And every one of our authors has that focus. And so we want them to all talk in a little bit different ways about their books and stories. So I want you to all, and I know brevity is not really any of our friends, but I would love if we could just go real quick and say what the name of your book is and what your purpose really is with your book. And then I'm gonna get into some specific questions. Can we do this? All right.
Hi,
Yes.
my name is Farron Pessin, and my book is I'll Be Right There. It's a guidebook for adults caring for their aging parents, and my goal in writing the book is to help reduce stress for people who are entering into that journey and participating in that journey for a long time. And I hope to be able to travel the country and speak to people all over, and hopefully this will be my ticket to do that.
And quickly, Fern's book came out last month. So very new, very new. Yes.
Hey everyone, my name is Rhodes Perry, and my book is called Belonging at Work, Everyday Actions You Can Take to Cultivate Workplace Cultures of Belonging, or actually to cultivate an inclusive organization. It was published in November of last year. But my goal with the book is to help leaders, visionaries, movers and shakers really look at what belonging means and believe that everyone in the workplace can show up, be their authentic selves, and have their genius be recognized, and just move the organization forward so that it's accomplishing its mission and just feeling a sense of purpose and meaning. So I loved writing it, and I hope you check it out.
Awesome. That's really good.
Hey, I'm Jennifer Brown. My book is Inclusion, Diversity, the New Workplace, and the Will to Change. So I am a consultant originally, and I have a team of about 25 folks. So I'm CEOing with a lot of my time, but I really wanted to up-level to keynoting, which I really love and I'm good at and I want to do more of, and bigger stages and higher paying gigs. So to have a book after having a consulting practice for so long really legitimized my voice as a thought leader. And the audience I wanted to reach with this, of course, was all of the individual people in my audiences that I wasn't able to serve with something to read, to learn from, because I'm so B2B, which is business to business, it's enterprise focused, so everything I sell is to a company usually. And so this was a way to give people something they could hold. So it's been an important part of my personal brand as I build that platform, in addition to my business brand, which is a consulting business. So.
Yay. So my name is Dina Proto. I am a registered nurse, and I am the author of Identity Impact: When Society's Expectations Collide with the Authentic Self. And I did it by accident. I thought I was going to write a brochure as to why retailers should carry inclusive LGBT greeting cards and products for people. And my nurse brain kicked in, and instead I went down a rabbit hole and discovered all of the healthcare disparities that I already knew existed, but on a different level this time. And for me, this ended up being the catalyst to my healthcare consulting business. So what I do now, because of this and because of Jen and her team, is I teach other healthcare providers how to do really good healthcare for us and why it's important. And my mission is to be the rubber on the road, boots on the street. What do we do to impact care at the bedside for people, and why should healthcare facilities and doctors' offices do that? So I get to do that every day, so thank you.
All right, so I have a tendency to go rogue off of this script. So, we all know this. So I don't know if this was a planned question or not, but I'm curious what the most, and maybe even starting with Dina and Jen, what the most unexpected outcomes have happened from your book, and unexpected. Just because, we all set out to write a book, share our story, we want more speaking engagements oftentimes, we want more consulting business, but have there been any stories of people being impacted by your work that have really stood out?
I would say you never know what audience your book is going to find. So I would have thought only like corporate leaders, but I have parents coming up to me, church leaders, teachers who got a lot out of this, therapists who got a lot out of it. And so when you're writing, it's hard to set an intention and a goal to say I'm going to write this because you have one audience in mind so that you can have a creative process, right, that hangs together. But that's so cool to hear. And then the other thing that's neat is to see somebody bring their book to you and it's full of highlights and notes and it's dog-eared and they're just a super fan. And there's no feeling in the world like that, like truly to feel like it changed somebody's life or changed the direction of their career or whatever. So all of this will happen to you at some point. If it hasn't already, I'm sure it has for these folks, but it's just this incredible feeling.
Yeah, so I think probably one of the most poignant things is when a parent comes and says, I read your book and my child came to me and identified themselves and it helped me to help my child. That is purpose, and that is publishing your purpose, and that is making an impact. So I think that was an unexpected win.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think the power of social media is really amazing. And so when I see people kind of writing a quote from the book and like a picture of the book and they're excited by it, the super fan phenomenon, I didn't think that would happen. And so I know that everyone in this room has a story. So get it out there and share it with the world, and the world will share it back with you and how it's impacted them. And it's usually in really unexpected ways. And one of the other cool things too is people who come to you and say, hey, we want you to talk about your book, come And I actually had a request in Germany recently, and I was like, how did this happen? I have no idea. But it was kind of cool. So that was really great. So you never know.
I thought I was writing a book because it says on the book, adults caring for their aging parents. And then I ran a launch event and other events, and I get all these old people, and they're dragging their kids with them. So that was a little unexpected. But yesterday I had like the most awesome news that I've shared with some people. I am in the Delray Beach Library stacks now. So I'm sorry, but that's like so thrilling for a little library girl like I was when I was a kid. So thank you.
I love it. That is awesome. So, okay, so I wanted to start with like the yes, like we're making impact. But now I want to reel us back over to self-doubts. Because I've worked with close to 80 authors at this point, and there is not a single one who has gone through the process of publishing a book without a lot of self-doubt. And it manifests in very different ways. So I'm curious if you're willing to be raw and vulnerable and kind of expose maybe some area in the process, whether it was the writing before you even started publishing, maybe even after it's published, if there's areas where you just really were like, why am I doing this? Or who am I to be doing this?
When I started this process, I looked at what was out there in the market, and there's a lot of books by nurses, there are books by lawyers, there are books by doctors, there are books by people who hire people to take care of other people. And I didn't find a voice other than in a memoir of people who said, everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten kind of stuff. You know, I want the basics, I want the simple stuff. And so I kept writing everything I learned down, and people asked me to write a list. So it's a really long list. but it felt really good to do it, and the only way I got it done is because when I spoke to Jen and I spoke to the people that were in my Lisa and the other people that were helping, they said, no one else has done it in your voice. And that has spoken to me over and over. Every time I had a doubt, it was, you may be talking about something people have talked about before, a topic, but they haven't heard it in your voice. And so whoever's out there in the world needs to find who they connect with. And so that really made all the difference in the world and enabled me to finish it and continue and keep writing more.
Yes. Yeah, I think you might hear a common theme around imposter complex. So that definitely showed up for me in writing the book around belonging and trying to motivate leaders who have heard this message a zillion different ways. And in recognizing, I think when I got to the second round of edits, that's when I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to put this out there? I can always turn back. I think that was my point of, when I went forward with the second round, that was the point of no return. But I think what was important for me is, I'm a trans person, I'm a trans guy, and I wanted to have a little bit of my story in the book, as well as kind of what the workplace was like for me when I worked for someone else. Now I get to work for myself, which is great. And just thinking of my younger self and what that would mean if I read it. And a good friend of mine works at the National Center for Trans Equality, and he does a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And one of the first books that he told me he bought was this book, and he was really moved by it. So that was some of the feedback that felt really good, and I have goosebumps now. So.
It's traveling down the panel. Oh gosh, Jen Grace knows an uncomfortable amount of my dirty laundry. The creative process is tough. I was a busy CEO, so I outsourced a lot of the writing process, and we could not find the right writers. And I think looking back, it's something you do need to do yourself, like in a way, and I think it was an avoidance technique, honestly, to think I could outsource it. And interestingly, the other point I'd make, and I'm still wrestling with that, and I've subsequently written more. So I think it's a conundrum for busy people to figure out, like, how do I create the time to do this? And what does a real writing team look like? And maybe we can talk about that later, how you're supported when you work with Jen and her team. But other people are a huge emotional support for you. At one point, my team said, we need more Jennifer in this book. Because I was writing from my head all the time. And I was very vulnerable. It felt very vulnerable and almost insignificant to say, well, what do I matter in this book? And you know, we all read leadership books where you don't have a sense of the author. They don't think that their story connects. And you're left kind of thinking this was a very intellectual exercise, but you didn't get, but why does this matter to you? So I had to have people to hold this space to literally say, chapter 5, you know, we haven't heard from Jennifer in five pages, you know, and I had to get really vulnerable and think about weaving myself in. And I think that's actually made the book like so much better. But it was hard to be vulnerable and think about why me, why does it matter, where do I put it? But the best books now, I think, are this blend of expertise and vulnerability and personal story, and that's when it really, really clicks. So difficult, but a very good learning for me in the process.
So I would say there is some of that. I think, you know, in healthcare, we talk about therapeutic use of self. And, you know, what do you share with the patient and what do you hold back and when is it beneficial for somebody and when is it therapeutic for you more than the patient? And I think that there was probably a blend of that when I wrote the book. And I've had some significant mentors in my life who have said, like, you keep avoiding telling the story. You know, like I own a greeting card company as well, and people would say to me, well, you never touch on the real story. You kind of skirt around the issue. And I'd be like, well, the story's not really about me. It's really about everybody else, right? And years later, I'm going to eat crow and say they were right. And it really is telling the story and telling in a way that it is meaningful for somebody else. So you have to, it's therapeutic use of self. There it is, right? And and I did definitely feel that why does my information matter, right? And, you know, question like, do I have enough knowledge as a nurse to really talk about this? Well, I'm a damn good nurse. And my patients and my family say it, and like, why should it stay at the bedside? I should make an impact someplace else. The other piece that was really difficult for me was giving somebody else my trust and my faith, because I might be a little OCD as a nurse. And so when my book came back to me with a whole lot of red lines, when I had never gotten anything less than a B in school, we had a little bit of a kerfuffle. And I might have honestly, legitimately reprinted every page out in its original format and tried to put it back in line on the family room floor, and Jen might have been on the phone saying, you need to come back down. And I won't tell you all of the choice words I gave her, because although I learned my voice in writing, I know a lot of words. But it was a really good process, and it is cathartic, and it is healing in a way. And they gave me myself back.
Yes.
Oh, I have so much love and adoration for all of you and those who have not come up yet. So I want to ask one more question, and then we're going to swap out our authors. And while they are swapping, I would like for Taylor or Brandy, which we should give a thanks to, from my team, who are amazing. Yes. Some badasses over there. They're going to go around with raffle baskets. So we have a handful of raffles that we'll be doing. And so just throw your card in. If you don't have a card, we have a piece of paper you can write your name down on. Yes. Okay. So my last question for the four of you is, what is the one thing that you wish you knew at the beginning of this process that would be beneficial to everyone in the room that may just be thinking about doing this, but they're not yet ready to get there? Is there one? I know, they're all wanting to kill me right now, because these are all road questions. But they feel relevant. So is there just, one thing that kind of comes to mind of like, I really just knew that in the beginning? Fern, I know you have a blank look on your face, but I'm going to throw it to you.
I'll do this. I'll do it. I'll kick us off. Okay, so you have you might be wrestling with what kind of publishing partner you want and need. And I think of it as, if this is helpful, sort of 3 choices, but they're not really, one is not really a choice for a lot of us because we're not big enough brands to merit a larger publishing agreement. So really your 2 choices are total self-publishing and then working for something like Jen and her structure. And I think that, self-publishing is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of mistakes that you can make. They can end up costing you a lot, lost time, lost money. You need pros and you need people who have figured it out and they know the best people in each category, whether it's a developmental editor or a copy editor who are not the same thing, whether it's cover design, whether it's, managing, setting your pricing. So this is stuff that, trust the experts, don't be penny wise and pound foolish about this. It really matters, and I say it's worth every penny to pay for a team who literally can just keep you running on time, hold you accountable for your deadlines, lay the path out. All you need to do is follow it, right? And not do it. Well, there's going to be moments if you need to do what Dina did. There's going to be moments. Yes. But you will be really grateful. And the other thing is you can get it done fairly quickly. I will tell you, in the bigger publishing world, it's 18 months to 2 years from like start to finish. And I think, I don't know what an average time is.
6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months. And for me, my topic was so hot and I had to get it out. So some of us don't have time to wait. Our message is just too important. So I really highly recommend pay for this help because you need it. You need the emotional support and you need the structure. Give it to yourself as a treat and know that your product will be inestimably better, actually. I promise you that because there's so much you don't know. So it's sort of a don't try this. Do not try this at home. Okay. So that is. Here you go.
There's gonna be a brawl.
I think the thing that I would have wanted to know is what I was going to do with it when I was done. And I didn't know it until I was told it. I say that with love. I think what I thought my vision was ended up being different than it really was. And I think you do need to trust the experts. I think sometimes you think you have this pathway, and at some point you need to trust the people that you're talking with, and have enough safe space with those people that you can walk through that process and say, look, this is what's really important to me, and hope that they hear your message and can be your voice when you can't get the words out on the paper. I think, and I think I would have probably benefited, probably just because I am very honestly that author that is probably one of the more high-strung, everything in my life is in this, and I get one shot to make it right. You only get one shot to make a first impression, and so I would have wanted to know how to give that power to somebody else to trust and have faith and trust that process. And Jen would say, trust the process. And I'd be like, you're on crack. I don't trust any process. I'm like a tried and true. I need to see the evidence-based research. Where is that stuff? So we're your evidence-based research. We're your evidence-based research. There's 8 of us here. And trust yourself. I think I didn't have enough trust in myself. So trust yourself. That's the thing that you need to know. Right? Know that you know your stuff, whatever your stuff is, and that you are a subject matter expert in whatever your thing is, and you are enough.
Lovely.
Very nice.
And I will say that it's authors like Dina, and I say this with love, is that we have a booklets floating about. And
my fault?
No. No, they're beautiful, so that would be a good thing to be at fault for. No, but I jokingly would say that I play 3 roles with every author that we work with. The first priority is being a strategist, because we want to make sure there's strategy behind what we're doing. The second one is a therapist, aka Dina, where, and I think this is applicable to everybody, where I have to push them far, but know when we've gone too far. And there's a very fine line with that. And I don't have a degree in therapy, but I actually have been looking into programs so I can hone my skills a little more. And then a cheerleader, because everyone needs a cheerleader. And when we're talking about self-doubt and when we're talking about not necessarily believing in ourselves, someone needs that person to believe in them. And so that is kind of my triad, and it's written out somewhere. I started off saying it kind of as a joke, and I'm like, you know what, this is like really accurate. I might need to have an asterisk around a therapist so I don't get sued, but it seems really accurate, and I think you just really kind of encapsulated that well.
And Jen is a wizard in all three of those areas. And I had the pleasure of going through the Authors Academy. So this was a 14-week program. And one of the things that I didn't know before going through that program was just kind of the hive mind that comes out of it. So you're going through this process with a number of other authors, most of the time writing about completely different topics. And yet Jen is doing all three of those things, and you also have that from other authors going through the process with you. So sometimes when you're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, or this is too much, I have all this other work, you have you have a team of fellow authors with you. So when you're kind of like lagging behind, they push you and vice versa. And it feels, when you see other people's books come out, that's it almost feels like your book in some ways. So it does feel, I have not worked with any other publishing companies, but it does feel like a family, which is great. Yeah, please.
I just want I just kind of want to piggyback on that because we talk about being an author brother and sister, and it's very true. Like you cheer each other on, and I went through the academy as well. I was an early guinea pig, and I really was, and but it was worth it. And you cheer each other on, and we get to help pick covers, and we get to, what do you think of this? And it's kind of a really cool process, and we get to support each other. And we might be in some of the same spaces, and yet very different. And I think that we blend, and we can help each other, and we do support each other. And I think that's a huge thing. And I don't know that you would get that with somebody else.
These are not paid endorsements.
Alcohol's paid.
So when I signed up to do the formerly Academy, now PYP Academy, I was writing an erotic novel.
I want to read that too.
And I wish that.
That's when I knew I wasn't publishing fiction.
Right.
Nonfiction and memoir only.
But the program wasn't about that. It was about how to put a book together, not what you were writing in the book. It was about the collaboration with the people who were on the little screens every week, and we talked, and we made friends, and we made partners, and we got feedback. And I think when you're in this alone, you can feel, because you're writing, you got a computer, and you're just writing and writing. I think I wish I had known how collaborative it would be, because as a writer, since I'm 13 years old, it's always been in my head and on my page, and it's been truly a blessing to be able to be with other authors and to have such an incredibly supportive team in Jen and all the people that she works with, and I'm happy to be part of that team sometimes. So I would say that if you're worried that you're never going to get it done because you feel so isolated and you don't have a world around you, I would say that this kind of hybrid environment that's not just, okay, give me it when it's done and we'll put it on a piece of paper and give it back to you, versus the big houses that, well, 3 years later you might get $12 of marketing budget out of it. I think it worked for me, and it worked for all of us. So I would say I wish I had known then that it was going to be so great.
Thank you all so much. Let's give them all a round of applause.